One of my favorite deer hunts was from 2 or 3 years ago. It was a deer I killed with my bow. And I was pretty amped up coming into this season because it's been one of few seasons where it seems that I had multiple deer that I would have been happy with, but one stood out above the rest. And I tried to kill that deer in early muzzleloader season. Made a move on him from the ground in a ditch, and it just didn't go my way. The deer was a little farther than I wanted, and there were does all over this field, so it was hard to properly execute, and moved on. The rest of the deer season there, like I would go deer hunting, I'm thinking about that deer. Like that deer just consumed my thoughts. I had pictures of him on camera. I knew he was still in the area, but I could just never catch him. And I'm sitting there one day, I believe it was just before gun season came in, so sometime there in early November, and I'm just sitting there thinking, I've got to kill this deer before gun season comes in, because then everyone's going to be out and about, and my odds are going to go way down. And as I'm sitting there, I hear some leaves crunching, and I look over my right shoulder, and I see a good deer coming through the woods, and I was like, oh man, that's a good deer. And this deer steps out and starts making a scrape in this lane, and I've got this perfect hole. The problem, at least at the time, was that good deer was not the deer that I was after. So I sat there and watched him. I'm holding my bow, I'm standing up, this deer's 20 yards in front of me, and he's dead to rights. I'm sitting there questioning myself, what do I do? Do I take this deer, which could arguably be my best deer to date, or do I keep hunting the deer that's consuming my mind? I let that deer walk away. That deer finishes making his scrape, and he walks to the edge of the field. I'm about 20, 30 yards tucked into the woods, and I've got a good transition area where deer will come through here as they make their way to the field. And I don't know what happened, but when that deer kind of got in front of me and I saw him from behind, I started just kicking myself in the rear, because that was a dang good deer, and would have by far been the best deer that I've killed with a bow. And now I'm just second guessing everything. Matt, that was so stupid. Why did you do that? By the grace of God, that deer scanned that field edge, turned around, and came back to that scrape that he had just finished making not 2 minutes ago. It felt like an eternity, but it all happened pretty quick. And at this point, I'm geared up, right? I'm not gonna miss this opportunity. Had my bow in my hand, drew back. Then I got real conflicted, because this deer was standing there in his natural element. And I've talked to buddies about this, and I'm sure a lot of people do. If a deer is just standing still, do you make a noise to try to capture that deer's attention like you would if that deer was walking? And my gut feeling at the time was no, don't do anything, he's here, I don't need to do anything. So I released that arrow, and I felt good about the shot, but as soon as I start to release that arrow, that deer just goes to take a step forward. And I can just replay it in my mind, I'm like reaching for that arrow as it's leaving my bow, and it hits him good, but it was farther back than I wanted. So I knew that there was no way that I was going to be able to go after that deer that night. So I encountered a sleepless night, and was able to go recover that deer. He ended up only running about 300 yards, but it was a back hit, so I did the right thing waiting. But now that I'm telling the story, I remember I actually recovered him opening day of gun season. So that's how close we were to gun season, and I was able to get it done, and thrilled. And that might be, he's definitely one of my top 2 bucks, and to this day, the best buck that I've ever harvested with my bow. So that is absolutely one of my favorite deer hunts.